Hello and welcome to this week's issue of BRN United. This is Labor Day when I'm making this film, and of course Labor Day is a major transition for us in the course of the year. Summer is ending, kids are going back to school, but also in our churches, this time of year is often a time in which they begin to give attention to planning their budget for the coming year. So I want to take this week's video blog and next week's video blog to talk about two areas that I think are really important for churches to consider at this time of year. And pastors, let me encourage you, after you've viewed this, you may want to share this with some of the other leaders in your church. Those two areas deal with the compensation for staff and also how you're investing in the kingdom beyond what your local church is doing. So let me first talk about compensation of your staff. Recently, I came across an article that was the results of a survey conducted by the National Association of Evangelicals, the NAE. And here were some of the highlights of that survey. 30% of pastors have student loan debt that average $36,000. 3 out of 4 carry some type of non-mortgage debt, student, medical, or other debt, averaging $31,593. 33% have less than $10,000 in retirement funds, and 29% have no retirement savings at all. 84% do not have funds to cover emergencies and major purchases, and 31% work a second job. Now, certainly we do not want to encourage unwise financial management, but there is a challenge that all people in ministry face. And of course, in our state, about 75% of our pastors are serving bivocationally. It's very clear in Scripture. Jesus said in Luke chapter 10, verse 7, remain in the house eating and drinking what they offer, for the worker is worthy of his wages. And Paul said to Timothy, for the Scripture says, you must not muzzle an ox that is threshing grain, and the laborer is worthy of his wages. So I want us to consider today some things we might do to help look at and evaluate the compensation of our church staff. Of course, many churches, the only staff they have is their pastor. And so I'm talking specifically about pastors. There are several solutions I think we need to consider. One is make sure that annually with your financial planning people, personnel committee, however your church is structured, your elders, others that serve in that kind of capacity, sit down and make sure that you spend some intentional time reviewing the compensation of your staff. Look at salary, look at housing allowance, look at benefits such as insurance and retirement. Look at some of the expense reimbursements for travel, for books, for study. Make sure that you're maximizing the opportunities we have in our current tax laws so that you can stretch what the church is providing to the pastor as much as possible. One thing that might be of interest to you is to study what other churches of similar size or budget or history to yours. And if you go to the guidestone.org website, how's this for high tech? www.guidestone.org and do a search for compensation study. You'll find there a tool where you can put in the state, the size of the church, the size of the budget, the education level of the pastor, other kind of factors like that, and do a study to see not only what other churches in Pennsylvania are compensating their pastor, but other states in our area, Virginia, Maryland, Ohio, New York, New England, or even do a study across the United States. That, I think, would give you some helpful benchmarks to look at how you're currently planning the compensation for your pastor. Obviously, our churches want to do as much as they can to help their pastor, but because many of our churches are small, it may not be simply a matter of just increasing the compensation. What are some other solutions you might consider? Well, one would be sit down with the pastor and have a candid conversation about his financial status. There may be some debt that he's carrying, and that rather than salary increases, there may be some ways the church could come alongside and help lift that load of debt that he's carrying. Talk with him about his retirement savings, his retirement planning, and there may be some things the church can do to help make sure that he'll be able to continue serving the Lord even though he may no longer be in a funded ministry capacity. Pastors are key leaders in our churches, and this is an important time in the life of the church as you prepare your budget to give some serious conversation with your pastor, your other staff, about how the church can best compensate them for their service. Remember, the worker is worthy of his wages, and we want to be good stewards, not just of the money that we receive as a church, but also a steward of the people that lead and serve us in our congregations. If there's any way that we can assist you in having that conversation, don't hesitate to give us a call or to contact us at info@brnonline.org. Thank you for joining us this week in BRN United. I pray that you're having a great beginning of the fall, and I look forward to talking to you next week about how your church is investing in the kingdom. Thank you.